when you have some problem, so it will throw an exception. When you have an exception, you can handle it. What is the point of exception handling? I told you a simple example. If you see a phone screen, suddenly a big error message comes. Will you be comfortable? Or if it says that, poor internet connectivity, you as a user will be happy. So means whenever we cannot say that the code will be 100% correct. No matter what software anyone creates, there will be bugs. So sometimes the users don't know in which cases it can happen. When you are having that kind of issues, how you are addressing it? That's the whole point of this exception handling. Means bugs can occur. We try to handle as much as possible. But if you don't, unfortunately, new things comes. How to address that? So whenever you got this kind of, the code was broken, instead of breaking this code, you should handle it. So for that, in try exceptions, there were 4 blocks: try, except, else, and finally. So in these 4 blocks, so in the try block, whatever the code that you are thinking, which gonna create an exception, means which gonna break the code, you place it there. It doesn't mean that it should do. It may or may not, whichever you have a doubt, that logic you need to write. And in the exceptions, we need to handle what kind of exceptions we are handling, that I will tell shortly afterwards. And when there is no exception, this else will execute. When there is an exception, except will execute. Finally is kind of a cleansing, which I will tell afterwards. And among these 4 blocks, only 2 blocks are mandatory. The other 2 blocks, else and finally, are optional. To handle our above problem, 1 by 0, I handle with a try except. When I am doing a try except, I know that this is gonna create an issue. If it creates an issue, then this except will execute. So it is executing. And in this case, see here that it is saying like, what is the difference between this try except and except exception? Exception means if you write like this, then we can get an exception message also. So this is kind of like the umbrella exception. What I am trying to say means, if you see the hierarchy which I showed on the other day, I showed a lot of exceptions. Among these exceptions, the exception is this one which I am speaking. Means it can handle all these exceptions. Right now, we at this stage got a zero division error. In fact, zero division error is part of arithmetic errors, which is part of exceptions. So due to that, like the moment you did an exception, it is handling it. Whether you don't write also, it will handle by the same exception. But if you write explicitly, you can get the message too. At this stage, you are not getting, but if you want, you can get it with an as operator. You can write any variable you define. For that variable, this exception message will come. And if you print it, it will print the exception message. And during this phase, I told you that there are 3 ways in which you can do. Just you can say exception message, you get an str, or if you do str explicitly also same thing. But if you do RIPR, that's make the difference. See, str means it will just give the actual string. That's the reason they say that str is for humans and RIPR is for machines. So, as a human being, so end user is not worried. Don't think like you are a developer. Think like you end user is someone else. So they don't deal like, what is zero division error exception or like arithmetic error exception. So can I divide by 0? Am I doing something else? Just give me message, that's it. So that's the reason for users, str is more preferable and REPR is for the machines. That's what they say. But now you understood the difference between these two. Going further, what is this actually happening? Is it that it should give an exception every time? It doesn't mean that every time it should lead to an exception. If I say like 1 by 10, in this case, there is no exception at all. So it will not execute. So if you see in this case, as we know that REPR and both are doing, I'm just taking REPR only, and I'm printing an else. All good. Now you see what happened. Oh, sorry, I did have 1 by 0. Yeah, 1 by 0. Yes, 1 by 0 is there. It's a good use case. If I do like, 1 by 10. Now in this case, what happened? So it is optional to have the else case. But else case, when it will execute? When the code you placed in the try block is executed successfully without any exceptions, then the else block will execute. Hope it's clear. So going further. So like this, we have like multiple use cases for this. If I go further, okay, yeah, let me go with the use case. Yeah, okay. I have taken this example. Further, I want to optimize. I instead of try exception, I can handle with the different exceptions also. This is called as an umbrella exception. Means it can handle everything. Okay, there can be problems of different ways. Not every problem can be zero division error. Okay, I am giving one more problem this time that I have like this. You see now what is the error here? It's a type error. Means different errors can lead to different exceptions. So, and you know, right, if I go with one more, say instead of a 0, if I say like zero, type error. Okay, one second. Yeah, 1 by 0 if I give. Now you got a name error. Means based upon the situation, we are getting different errors. Then how do you handle the individual errors? So handling individual errors, exceptions. How to handle that? If I see. So for that, I have taken the example, and if let's say name error is there, which I want to handle. In that case, instead of an exception, I write like a name error. Name error. If I execute, I get the name error. Similarly, earlier I have a type error. I can handle with a type error. I handle a type error. Or earlier I have some other error. Yeah, zero division error, right? So this one, the zero division error also I want to handle. I take it. Instead of this one, I handle with the zero division error. So if I execute, it will handle it. And one more thing to understand, if you see in the hierarchy, where is the zero division error? It is here, which is first part of a arithmetic error and then part of this. So now my question is, as zero division error is there, if you individually granularly go and handle also, it is working, right? If you are doing at the umbrella level also, it is working. What if I handle with a arithmetic error? Will it work? Let's see. So the same thing I am taking. So hierarchy means if you follow the entire family structure. If I take this one and if I handle like a arithmetic error, it should handle. Yeah, it's a handling. Okay. So, sir, in which case things will not handle? How I will know that something is not handling? Okay. If you now change the error to something else, then it will not handle. Say like, earlier we found that when you divide a integer with a string, you get a type error. But in the arithmetic error family, where is the type error? So there is no type error here. If I say the type error, type error is somewhere outside in the family, which is directly under the exception. So if I handle with the type arithmetic error right now, can I handle a type error? No. Hope you are understanding which error can be handled by whom. So this is the structure which everyone follows. Maybe like a couple of days when you're walking through, you can get comfortable. Umbrella exception means it can handle everything. Everything will be under it. So if I go inside, it has like multiple exceptions. So families, arithmetic errors like lookup errors, memory errors, OS errors. So all these things. And under each of the family, what are there, all of them can be handled by in the tree structure. If you give anything outside, they cannot handle. So that's the reason when you go, every time we try to better handle the code. So we try to address all the problems as possible, right? So individually, you know how to handle. So, but the best practice, whenever you are handling individual errors also, there should be a best practice that though you handle n number of exceptions, we need to have a umbrella exception also. Umbrella exception means, we should have that try except also. If I say try except, this is kind of like umbrella exception. Means whether you handle in any way also, you should handle it. Means today you know that there are three problems within your code. So yes, they cannot be solved because something is not in your hands. For these three problems, you have a try exceptions. What if in runtime a fourth problem comes? You cannot go in runtime and go to the production code and modify everything. You should have something to hold everything. So for that, we need to have an umbrella exception. Umbrella in the sense like overall exception. But where it should be placed, that is also very crucial. If you observe this code carefully, you can see by the coverage itself, you can see here, right? It is saying this code is not reachable. Why this code is not reachable? The moment I wrote the umbrella exception means it's very simple. The moment any exception comes, you are checking, right? First, you are checking in the exception block. Hey, can you handle any of my exceptions? Yes. If it can handle, it will not go further to any other exceptions. In the exceptions also, it will go in the top to bottom order. Exception handling. Top to bottom order. So this is what actually happens in the exception handling. So due to that, like we need to ensure, so the minimum is the minimum in the down and the maximum at the top. So in this structure, what this is a maximum. So I should place it so above. And the minimum is like what? So this is fine. Or if you want to handle, further, means like you got the same type error. So view cannot handle, but that's why it handle it. And if you want to handle the arithmetic error, so type error also, you can write except type error as type error. So print like, so maybe, typing issue REPR of exception. So, exception. Because like anyhow, right, when you handle the individual exception, so there is no point of again saying, so like fine. So type error, so and so I give. You give now, the type error was handled here. That's what is saying typing issue because I wrote exactly here. So when you got an exception, first it will go to the first exception. Hey, can you handle me? No. Say, hey, can you handle me? Yes. If it can handle, it will not go to the next exception. It will directly go to that's it. The block will be completed. So if it can't handle, only then it will go to the next exception. Okay, sir. So what if there is another exception? Say like, I have a zero division error right now. Zero division error is there. Zero division error means I got the error like this. Now, zero division error can be handled first by arithmetic error itself. So that's why you got it. If you want more note, I can say here it's like, arithmetic error, something I am writing. If you see the output, you got the same message. The same zero division error can be handled by zero division error also, that exception also. So now, then in my code, I can handle one more use case. So you see, when you're handling, the most granular thing should be in the starting. So the humongous thing should be in the top. So arithmetic zero division error, zero error I'm saying. You see? So in the first one itself it handled. So that's why. So the minimalist first and the maximalist at the last. And it's a best practice to have the umbrella exception even though you handle all, because we don't know what can happen in the future, right? In the worst case, we need to be prepared ourselves. So let me create a small program. So we need to work on. If I need to create a small program for it, 04 calculator.py. We need to do a calculator example. How do you do a calculator? User bin Python calculator example, which I want to do. In calculator, say like I want to do addition only. Say I want to pertain to only addition also, or any all the things. Let's do. Let me take the number one. The number one should come from the user. I do like input number one is equal to, I'm asking the user. Of course, it should be like a user will give the value. I need to convert. So for that, I can convert to integer. And number two is equal to, again, int of input of number two is equal to, I have given like this. So now two values were there. After getting these two, I can start. Okay, fine. Okay. Now I got two numbers. Now I need to do all four calculations and I need to print it. That's the main agenda. So I will write a print statement. Multi-line print, where I want to print the addition value is number one plus number two. Subtraction, number one minus number two. Multiplication, number one into number two. And division, number one divided by number two. So these were like four things we have: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So very simple, right? No Greek and Latin, very simple logic. If I go to the terminal, I need to execute it. So how to execute it? We need to directly copy the path, clear, and Python. So the entire path, execute it. Number one, if I give 100. Number two, if I give like the 200, I got some answers. And Python, again the path. If I give like number 100, number two 0, what I got? Did you see that code was broken? Now we understood why we need to have the try exception blocks. If there is an issue, then we need to have this problem. So this is one thing called as zero division error. So now with this code is having a problem. Where the problem is coming? In the division. So this code need to be in the try exception. So as this is the entire one statement, I cannot make a try exception one for anything. So it's better to write a try exception here. So I wrote the try block, and here I wrote the exception block. So which exception? Zero division error. So precisely. So and so. So what are the exception messages I am getting? I am writing. At the same time, I know in my logic that when the zero division error comes in my context, whenever the number two is is at zero. So when a reminder is zero, that's only one times. So ensure number two is non-zero. So now you understood, right? Why we need to print this message and our custom message? Every project will get an exception but their own custom message, right? If you are working on antennas, antenna related parameters related some message you may give. If I am working on something like so web application development, I write something, but I have my project specific message. That message I need to give. So fine, if I execute now, I can get it. So again 100 and 0. Now you see here, ensure that number one is non-zero. You got the values. So fine, you got. Now a better way to handle it, so with a try except else block also, is that instead of you writing these things like this, you can write this else block here. What are the print statements you want to write here, but computations you do here? Means add result is equal to like this. Similarly, um, sub result you write like this, and similarly multiply result you write like this, and similarly you know divide result you write like this. So write like I created 4 results. These were the main problems, right? I wrote like this, and these results I am printing. You see what I'm trying to do? Computations which gonna create the problem I am doing. If there is a problem, so they will stop there itself. If there is no problem, I gonna get it. So how I am modifying my logic, you can understand. So in this way, if there is an issue, I get it. If there is no issue also, I can address it. So div result. So this is a better way of addressing now. If I say same 100 and if I say 0, now you got the problem solved. Or if everything is good, if I say 100 and say like 10, I got the answers. So whatever the logic you feel like there's gonna be an issue, that you place it here. Sir, why addition and all these things? We got issue only with the division, right? Okay, then I will take all of them to the above. Because if you feel like something is not going to give an error, better don't place it. So if I execute like this also it works. If I repeat the same statement, 100, 10, you got the output. Okay, sir. Next, let's go ahead with one more value. This time if I give 100 and if I give 123, now I got an exception again. What is this exception right now? So here the problem is with this code where the input that we are taking is an integer. So we are taking like an integer, but it is getting like this. So but then how we can do? So better, instead of taking like an integer, it's better to take like a float. If I take like a float, when there is a problem, if you can address, you address it. You don't write try exceptions every now and then. Here in this case, if you write float, so half of the problem is solved. So you need not write a try exceptions everywhere. So in this case, if I do again 100 and 12.3, it works. So as a developer, you should know when to use try exceptions, and also be aware every try exception gives some memory. I have seen some people's code, it was crazy enough. The entire code is like full of try exceptions. Means they themselves don't have a reliability on their own code. So I try to minimize as much less try exceptions as possible, because you should have a reliability on your code, right? If you are using try exceptions that much, means there is a lot of ambiguity in the code, not of unreliability, right? So try to think that point. Okay, now let's go for the next edge case. If I say 100 and if I go for like a name or something, I give something else name, which is a wrong input. When I gave this wrong input, the entire code was like gone. To handle this case, we can do. So whenever this case happens, okay, for this we can do. So whatever the logic you have, of course, these two should be there down, means like entire code you can place it down. So you can place it down. You see, based upon the use cases, I am coming down and up. Clear it. Again, the same thing, 100, and the second one is name. Now what happened? So, okay, you did a try exception, but you got a value error which wasn't handled. You did a zero division error which would be handled, but you need to handle. That's the reason I told you, right? No matter what exceptions you do, you need to have a umbrella exception also. Exception as ex. So you can print that REPR of ex. Maybe like you can say one statement that unhandled exception. If you write like this, next time you can handle it better. So if you see now the same problem, 100, if I give name, you see unhandled exception, you got value error. Now I understood that, okay, I got a new exception. Whether this problem can be solved or not. Is it a problem from the stakeholder or anyone else? I will resolve. If I couldn't do it or a temporary fix, and I do it. So accept value error as so why every time ex I can do vx also. So and like print. So whatever. So v explicitly when you're doing, there is no point of going for REPR because explicitly you are doing, right? So you can do direct so name, it's handling. So could not convert to the so and so. Or whenever you encounter this thing, you can write your own custom messages. So like this. Or so now we handle all kinds of edge cases. If I say 100, other one is true, cannot convert so true to a string is saying. So whatever code you know, the code is ultimately not broken. So finally, so there is something called as finally block. Finally means like so finally block. And there is a one more thing like a next statement I wrote. What are these two different doing? So no matter like whatever you do, so the finally and next statement should execute. Okay, if I execute right now, 100, 200, everything good. So or like I throw in error like name, some issue happened, but finally block executed next statement. In this case also finally next statement. And if I execute some number, some garbage, I got it. Means whether there is an exception or not, it doesn't matter. So every time the finally block will execute. And in the same fashion, after the finally block, if you write any statements also, it executes. Then what is the difference between these two and why we need to have this finally block means, then next stage you will go for something called as file operations, where you will open a file here. If say to close that file, we have a placeholder. Means you can do closing outside also, but everything can be intact in one place, right? So it's kind of a cleanup block we say. Any kind of cleanup action we can do here. Okay, next like this, if you see, let me give you one more example. So now we did only addition. Why just addition? Subtraction, we can do multiple expressions also, right? Let me take one more practical example. So this time fine. So expression, so evaluation, any expression. So not just like this thing or so and so. How to do that, sir? So for doing that expression evaluation, so let me come up with another thing. I told you that in Python, there is um, user purpose expression evaluator. Whenever we are doing something, first we need to have an agenda. What need to be done? If I do like 10 plus 23, it should do. So 10 by 23 percentile 34 minus 56, no matter whether or whatever you go, it should execute. For executing all of them, first we need to take that expression as in runtime expression. So how to get the expression? In input. In input, expression is equal to, you write. The user will give some expression. we need to take it. So we cannot like take the things individually. We dividing that string, you cannot take like divide to string, convert to integers. So it's a very headache. Means like assume that this is the expression, or like this is the expression for you. What you will do if say this is not an input, directly you got it. Say the expression is equal to like a string. When you evaluate like this only you get it. How do you evaluate this? How to calculate this value means what struggle you will do. So let me go and show you in a typical IPython here. If I do like a IPython, expression is equal to the same thing. So 10 divided by 34 percentile 34, so minus 56. This is the one which we need to solve. How do you solve? First, to understand this better, you do like expression dot split. If you do a split, you get the values like this. So then what you will do? Still there are hyphens, spaces, and all these things. How do you evaluate? You need to take each of the value. You need to do the operations. Don't worry. You need not do that much. Simple. There is a built-in function called as eval. If you do eval, you can get all the values. So for the eval, you pass this expression. Whatever the expression is there, you pass it, it will give the answer. In Python, that's a boon that we have an expression eval, but it expects everything to be a string. Hope you remember, I told you about this operator built-in function already, but still I'm telling again. So using this, we can implement it. So how we can do here? The same thing. Instead of we manually taking, so we will take this in input. So how to get in runtime? So input and then pass to the eval function. Eval function if I pass. So input I am taking and passing to eval. And of course, it's very, very dangerous. Don't do like this every time. Because like whenever you're getting an input, so first to do any pre-validations. If you don't do pre-validations and pass directly to eval, it leads to SQL injection attacks. Means anyone can pass anything and can execute that. So that's why be careful on it. So why that is a issue also I will tell, security issue also I'll tell. So if you have an exceptions, I want to handle this. What all exceptions I can handle? So I can try like different kinds of exceptions. So if you can make a list on it, as we have already seen some exceptions. First, I need to have a try block and have an exception. So generally, no matter what exceptions you have, there should be umbrella exception as I told. So to make it like, unhandled exception, and we can specify what is that exception. REPR is needed in this case as that we will understand what is that exception also. So if you want like, so we can write, this is a standard, code I generally write. You need not write REPR. If you write F string also, that is REPR only indirectly. So I will show you that reason also shortly. STR also it's a REPR. And similarly, I have like different kinds of errors which I've seen earlier. So zero division error, type error, etc. Right? So like that, I want to handle multiple exceptions. So, but like for different exceptions, I want to handle. But for the first time, I'm showing like if I have three exceptions, say like except, so zero division error as EX, I want to say like, a zero division error occurred. So zero, so division error, something. And similarly, I want to handle one more exception called as like a syntax error, maybe syntax error also I want to handle. So I want to say like, okay, this is syntax error. Syntax error. I want to display that error. Here also, that error. Similarly, I have one more exception. What else errors I can handle? Say like type error, which is also common, right? Type error. So I can say like type error. Okay, so you have handled like 3 exceptions and things are coming. So it is saying like, sir, it's not a good practice, it's saying to use like input and eval together. But in this case, I'm using as I told you. So Python, okay, how to execute this code? Either we can navigate to this directory, it's the easiest way. Python 05 so and so. So 10 plus 34 minus so and so. So in a percentile so and so, something I wrote, some expression. Okay, expression you wrote, there is no exception. Then we should get the result, right? When there is no exception, we should go to the else block. Else block. In the else block, so we should print the result, expression result. So that we need to have. So I will do like this using f-string assignments. F-string assignment is like a REPR only. In fact, if I execute and if I repeat something again, so slash so and so minus so and so percentile something. No, I got the expression. I gave an expression. I got the answer. Expression is equal to like this, and you got what is the value, expression result. So yeah, so we got the value. Fine. Now, if in this particular case, if you can observe carefully, I handle like 3 exceptions here. So, and like this umbrella exception. And what if I want to I have this code, right? Just I'm displaying zero division error, syntax error, or type error. What if the logic is same or similar for more than one exceptions? In that case, we can group them together. So that case, we call it as like, handling them together. So to handle them together, instead of you writing all of them, so we can write in the braces about zero division error, or what are the syntax error you have, the syntax error, or like you have the type error. So for the type error, you have it. So you have like 3 kinds of errors right now. So for all these things, you have the common logic issue. So then we can write like this. So we can say that, hey, as for 3, you have the same logic. You can write like this. So if you want like multiple exceptions to handle together, whenever you have the same logic for multiple things, you can go in this way. So you write something, so you can handle. So divide by 0, you got 0 to 0. And if I say like, so and so divide by, so a string, you got the same thing. So multiple exceptions, if either of the exceptions comes, any of them, so it will go into this logic. Hope it's fine. Now, apart from this, not only that, when your logic is happening, you can stop executing. So you see, whenever a big logic is executing for a lot of time, maybe a for loop or something, I will show afterwards. If you want to stop, there is something called as keyboard interrupt. If I say Control C, it will stop. If you want to handle that kind of exception also, we can handle. So to handle that, we can have something called as keyboard interrupt. This is also one kind of exception. In the hierarchy, that is in the top, if you see, keyboard interrupt. There is something called a generator exit, which you don't know at this moment, but fine. And you remember sys.exit, right? Sys.exit, generated by sys.exit. So that is also one kind of. So can I handle that, sir? Let me do that also afterwards. But sure. So you can try also. But like this, we can handle multiple exceptions. And in the exceptions, when it is handling, it will do differently in different use cases, which you have seen. So if I give like a big number, say, to handle this, keyboard interrupt error, let me show you. I'm executing. I gave like a big statement, big number to the power of very big number. It will take a very large amount of time. In due course, I can do a Control C. See, the moment you take Control C, I'm stopping the program. Keyboard interrupt. So the keyboard interrupt was handled by this one. That's why you got the statement executed. So like this, we can handle all kinds of edge cases. So to make a list of that, so results also I'm making here so that you will be aware of. So the program entirely, so how we are like handling this. So multiple exceptions, in which cases like how it is reacting, just to help you understand. Hope it's clear. This is how like you handle like multiple exceptions. And also I told this concept of exception precedence. So when there are like multiple exceptions, which one will help come first? So handling is up to us, but which exception comes first, that is also another interesting point, right? So to watch it. So when are like there are multiple exceptions, so the exceptions basically occur from top to bottom order. You see now, in this particular program, number 1 is equal to 10 100, number 2 equal to like this. I have like multiple errors. You see here, if I uncomment it, there are like multiple errors. If you can see, okay. If there are multiple errors, generally Python execution happens from top to bottom and left to right order. So how in the process only things will work. So number 1 is equal to 100. It's a very good idea. It's correct only. It works. When number 2 is equal to 200 you wrote, but number 2 is not defined. So name error comes. So there are like multiple exceptions in this particular highlighted code. Which one comes first means in the top to bottom order, whichever executes first. So 0, 6 if I execute, you see. So name error came. So because of this one, of course, I did a generic exception just to show you. But like I'm showing here the point. If I comment this one, then the next line executes. If you see here, type error comes because so do different data types are there. And similarly, if I execute further, I got zero digit error because this is in the next hierarchy. And if I execute further, so I get like there is no other exception. Everything is working good. And if I uncomment this one, I get that exception also. So these exceptions will be in the hierarchy. So from the top to bottom and left to right order. Within the same statement only, there can be multiple exceptions. In that case also the same thing works. If you see in this code, there is this exception. And similarly here we have a say 0. Means we have a name error. So we have a zero division error. So within this, which one will occur first? Okay, till now we understood top to bottom, left to right order. But in this case, in the same line, so there are two. Means you are saying left to right, sir. So obviously you expect name error to come. That's a left to right order. So name is first defined or not in the when it is executing. So if the name is defined, so here name is defined, so then it will go further and give us the zero division error. Hope it's clear how things are working. So these are like different kinds of exceptions priorities. So in which cases the exceptions are occurring. And the last point to discuss within the exception is there is one strange range of exceptions called as assertions. What is this concept called as assertions? Means generally, so these kind of messages we use when you are working with unit tests. Next, there is something called as a PyTest, where we'll work more clearly on these things. So anytime when you have a condition that it should be correct, we can write a statement like this. First of all, why it is needed means, assume that you want to print what is the value of 10 plus 2. If it is 10 plus 2 means what? 12 that you want to see. If I print like 10 plus 2, what will happen? Print as so and so. I got 12. But whose result is 12? I don't know, right? If you want, in my print statement, I'll be much more verbose by giving a string assignment. Now I will get say, oh, okay, 10 plus 2 is equal to 12. That's how you got the result. Okay. But like if you want sometimes to say like 10 plus 2 is equal to 12 that you want, so you can say like equal to such that you get it true also. I am giving a very simple example such that you can understand now, but in real time there are multiple checklists you will have. Let's say if you want to, if you want to start a bike engine, first of all, engine chassis number and everything should be right. So everything should be in proper order. Like that, some conditions will be there, right? So like that, assume some program you are writing, some condition should be there. So for all the conditions to be correct, you will write all the conditions and you expect all the values to be true. Okay. But will you every time check in the output that whether it is true or not? If it is one result, you can check. What if there are 30 or 40 things? You cannot check every time, right? It's crazy. So manually it is not possible. And also like every time, we cannot print like this. If it is true, this is equal to so and so, I print it true. Like that we cannot do. So to better handle these things, we have this concept of asserts. What is this concept of assert means? You write one statement. You expect this should be true. If it is wrong, then give this message and throw in error. Is 2 plus 10 and 10 plus 2 both are equal to 12 only? Yes, if everything is true, nothing will happen. But if there is an issue, let me give you a wrong statement. If I say like 10 plus 12 is equal to 12, is it correct? No. If it is wrong, you need not worry. You need not check every time the screen. If it is broken, it will break the code there itself. It will break the code there itself. So it is saying assertion error is coming. So this is how it works. So to handle this betterly, instead of writing like this, we go with writing with a try exception. Generally in real time, so we call something called as unit testing. There you test every piece of the code. The unit test, the code itself is like this kind of testing. So instead of writing like multiple asserts, there is a module altogether to handle all these kinds of assertions. So there you will learn more about these assertions. But for now, you will be aware that so you can write any statement. If the statement is true, it will not do anything. So, and if not, it will throw an exception error. In the what are the message you wrote, that message will come in the output. If you handle that exception, that also you can handle. But these are not just for like try exception handling. It is for a different purpose. Hope now you understood this concept of why we need these assertions and so on. Next set, if you see further, there is another thing called as raising the exceptions. So in which there is one more case where you raise an exception. Till now, you have an exception which you are handling. But what is this case of you raising an exception? Yes. So when you see, generally no one want their code to be broken, right? But like who will make their code to be broken? So that's a very interesting thought. Let me show you that how it works. If I use something called as raise, raise is a keyword in Python. If I say Python 08 so did you see what happened? The code was broken. It is saying at line 6 I was broken. Line 6 I was broken. What is saying? Runtime error. No active exception to re-raise. So with just one statement, things can rise. So instead of that, we can write like one good statement. Instead of just raising, I can raise an exception also. If I raise an exception, this time you observe, instead of runtime no active exception to re-raise, it is saying that raising a exception called as an exception. It is raising an exception block. That's the one thing that we need to see now. Rather, okay, if you don't want this raising exception, we can go for like, some other exception, say like value error. If I execute right now, it is executing and raising the value error exception. So like that, it can raise any exception if you give. Say like now, if I go ahead with a, say, type error. If I go ahead with a type error, it will raise a type error exception. But sir, every time it is raising the exception, but it's not giving any content. Yes. So instead of a type error, say like if I am going this time with a name error, This time name error, at the same time I gave some message also. Means what kind of exception message you want to raise? What is the exception message? Now don't you think it's like a typical ordinary exception, right? How it occurs? Like that only it's coming. So if you want to handle these exceptions also, we can handle it. So then you may ask me, in which case we need to, why first of all we need to raise and why we need to handle it? That could be a question, right? So, but before even answering that question, so I'm showing you, we can handle that and we can raise and we can handle that. So now the question is, first of all, why we will raise this? In which case we need it? Let's say example, let me give a simple example. You are working, I used to work earlier on a game. If you are aware of something called as NFS, maybe if you aren't aware. So I used to play that NFS game a lot, Need for Speed. So it means at the time internet was in the initial stage. So there is no multiplayer environment. For the first time multiplayer was introduced. So Need for Speed itself means a lot of speed we should play, right? If there are, so internet glitches sometimes used to happen. Due to that, what happens? You don't know what is the next move of other person. Then the entire collaborative effort will go away. That's the reason to better maintain that NFS. What they did is, if your internet speed is less than a particular limit, they will pause you, say that you cannot continue the program, because you need to have the minimum speed, else there is no point of playing that. User experience you won't get. So in this particular case, observe, NFS is a program. They themselves don't want you to jeopardize. That's the reason they are stopping you. Means they are not discouraging you from playing. They are saying that with that speed, you should not continue. Hope you understood the problem. So in that case, similarly, one more use case I will give. Before going further, for this, I want to add one more point in this thing is that, um, yeah, earlier we played on a calculator example. In the calculator example, we have seen that user is having all good when they are giving the values, but whenever they are giving a exception, in which cases exceptions are coming? Mostly when the user is giving the zero division error. It's a known case that if the denominator is a zero, it will throw an error. So you can avoid that problem, right? So instead of getting an exception and then handling it, so we can do it much better way. So for working on it, so coming back to a program, so let me give that example. You see now. So I can write like this. You see here now, I am raising an exception. You see, generally you take two numbers. So you want to give the division. So till now what you are doing? You are doing the division. So in the top, and if there is an issue, you are handling the zero division error. But what I am trying right now is that you have this concept of raise. Using raise, what I'm trying to say, if the number is zero, then you raise an issue there itself. You definitely know, right, that this is gonna be a problem. So you yourself raise it and you handle it. See, whether you raise or exception comes, every time you need to handle it. If you don't handle it, anyhow, your code only will be broken. User experience will go bad. So you need to handle, that's for sure. But in which case you need to raise, I am giving this note for you. So hope you understood. So like this, it's gonna happen. So this is fine. And one more thing to help you understand. Um, as I came in the process, I want to tell that, yeah. So one more use case where we use the re-raise, raise and others, I will tell you. You have seen in this example, right? So try exception, you are raising an exception and you are getting the exception. This you understood. In this particular case, I want to bring to your notice that I want to raise the code again. Means Let me show you this example further. Let me park this code for a moment. Okay, I'm removing. You understood the practical example, right? Fine. So this example, okay, they told that this is a name error and you got a printed. This is how the typical exception works. This is fine. Now, if you want to enhance this program, so you can do like this, where you see what happened. Instead of doing a try exception and so, what I'm trying to say is that whenever I got an exception message, it will say like a exception type, which is a name error, and exception message will be what are the given message. Say whenever you got an exception message, if you want to add some more thing, recently in the latest version of Python, I think like around 3.10, I guess, they added a new thing called as add note. Means for the existing exception object, so you can add extra things also. If you do like this, it should work. So 08, if I say, it is saying like name error has no attribute so and so, add note. So means like this code is not reachable. So to better handle this, so what they told is like, okay, instead of doing like this, do like this. What are they saying? To add note is like there. So to do like this, it is saying attribute error. There is no add note. So to understand, so there is something called as breakpoint. What my thought is like, this is an object. For this, I can add this add note. And what the error is saying is that attribute error means for this object, there is nothing like add note. You cannot even add anything. But recently I learned that we can add it. So I got a doubt. So I know that the problem is here. So I write a breakpoint. Breakpoint is another built-in function for like debugging something. Debugging means you got a doubt that something is happening there. I want to analyze that. If I execute now, I was there. See here, the moment I press a breakpoint, entire code executes and it will come execution there and it will pass. You see now, it is saying like line 37. Exactly right. Line 37 is the next line to execute. Okay. Now I know that any is the object which we have. It is saying this is a name error. It is saying there is no attribute called as add note. I do a dir of any. In the dir, did you see that there is no add note? No. So then what could be the issue? I come out of the program. I will ask, hey, what is the version of Python you have? It is saying Python 3.10. So it's in the latest versions, right? So this option is not there. So like that, you debug and come to a conclusion whether another option is present or not. Hope it's clear. So this is the latest option version with 3.11. So Python exception add note. You give a try. So it is saying like where it is 3.11 it is. See here in the 3.11 they added it, add note. So if you want to add note, you see 3.11 they added. And which version we are? 3.10. So that's why it's not working. So but in 3. So there that option is also there. Means for the existing code, if you want to add more, you can do that also. So local environment is not supporting. So that's why I couldn't do it. But so once it is supporting, you can just give a try. So and replacing what we have in the early example as it is. And lastly, within this, so we need to work on the get trace. What is this concept of trace? So from here, the entire story will change. So till now, we know exceptions occur, how to handle the exceptions. So where the exception is occurring, but you don't know exactly which exact line the exception is occurring and all those information. To get that information, we need to go for this traceback. So for the first time, you are using a new module called as traceback. What is this traceback? How to work with it? Let's see. So In the same fashion, if I come back to the traceback it means like in exceptions, it can better help. And when I'm working with tracebacks, I'm taking the help of sys module also. What is that help I'm taking? Let's see. Let me take some variables, say some numbers, some common numbers, and I have some expressions with these values. So these are my text expressions which I want to evaluate. And these expressions, I want to make it part of a try block. I got a doubt on them, so I want to evaluate. So generally, I handle the default exception, which is very much needed. And also there were divisions. So the most common error could be what? Zero division error when you have a divisions. So that also I handle. So the minimum things, as with my common sense, I did it. So okay, if I handle this exception and work on it, it will work. If I go to the Python space 09, it works. Okay, fine. So there is a problem, it is handling it. So we got the issue resolved. Now what is this traceback doing? Traceback actually helps us in terms of identifying where exactly this exception occurred. So before even going to the traceback, let's make use of the sys module for one purpose. So using this module, I'm printing this message. Hey, sys.execution information, I'm saying. Okay, when it is zero division error, if I don't need, I did not write there. So if I write here, it will be handling only in the unhandled case. So you individual cases you do when you know the specific use case. In unhandled only, we generally need, right? Where exactly is happening, why this new exception came. For like post-mortem, you need all these things. That is called as generally post-mortem analysis in a developer language. So sys.execution information you want. What it is saying, if I do execution information compared to the previous one, did you see what happened? This sys.execution information will give three values. Did you see? These were the three values as highlighted. The first will be the exception class. So we got a type error. It is saying the type error class. And second one is the type error and the message REPR string. And the third one is the traceback object. Did you notice? Every time we execute sys.execution information with an exception, you will get these three informations. Okay, based upon three informations, if I assign to three values, okay, instead of printing them, if I assign to three variables. So I told you, right? The first one is the exception type, and second one is the exception value, as I told, and the third one is the exception traceback, the traceback object. Means sys only will give you this information. Now with this only we need to manipulate. So how to work on it means using sys module. Okay, let me give it here. Okay, till now we didn't go to the traceback. So using sys module itself, I am getting this, and from the sys module, I got the traceback object. From the traceback object, I can get this. So TB line number means at what line. So what is the last type? So next, what is the next? And the TB frame. All that information you can get. So now you got a clarity. Till now you don't know, like somewhere you are beating in the bush that somewhere in these messages you got an error. Now you can clearly say that the error is at line 17. So in line 17, so it was the exception, which is the type error. So you got more clearly, so more information, detailed information. At the same time, there is this traceback. If the traceback is there, traceback can help you in further way. So these are all helping in terms of our postmortem analysis only. If I do like traceback, I need to import the traceback module. This is also built-in module. if I say print execution and file is equal to sys.execution output. So, there are two options. You can write to a file, or if I say sys.std out means the screen, the console I'm saying. If you write a file handler, give a file handler, it will go to the file also. But if I execute right now, did you see whenever the code was broken, whatever the message is coming, the same message is captured, right? Whenever the code was broken, you get a message, right? Exception and the exception message. The same message is captured by the traceback. Whereas the sys.execution information will give the entire detailed information of what line execution happened and all these things. Hope it's clear for everyone. So like this. And in the worst case, if everything is good, then we can do a else statement, you can execute, everything will be as clear as we know. And next, if you want to write your own custom messages, in which cases we need to write a custom messages? Let me give you a use case, then you will understand in which case we need to do it. Custom messages means, custom exceptions mean some use cases need us to do that. So let me give you a use case where say like whenever you know the election season is coming, so all over the world elections are coming. So when elections are coming, they say the voting is there only for the people who are beyond 18 years, right? If you are less than that, you are not eligible to vote. So how to do that? Let me do. So let me give a simple example. Okay. So first I write like, so vote is equal to 0. I want to calculate the votes of total votes. I equal to 0, or like while I less than 5, I plus equal to 1. I wrote a small loop, and within that loop, every time I am asking the age of the persons, who are the people are coming, I am asking their age. So because you don't know the complicated data structures like list, tuple, dictionary, etc., I'm making very simple. Input of, so enter the age. Enter the age. Okay. If the user enters the age, so I convert to integer. And if age is, I'm assuming that, user will enter everything clearly. It's not like float or dummy value. So I'm ignoring those cases, making it very simple, logical things. If age is, say, less than or equal to 0, it is very wrong, right? User should not give like that. So in that case, I can raise an exception of invalid entry for the age. So similarly, users can give an age which is less than 18 also. If it is less than 18, so in that case also I raise an exception saying that, hey, it's not an invalid, it's a valid, but you are ineligible for vote. Like that, I raise an exception. Else, in other case, I would do like, see this votes plus equal to 1. So like that, I wrote the logic. Now I have the entire logic right now. So this logic I need to place in a try exception block. So now what, for that I write the try. Under the try block, I write the try code, try exceptions, do it. And after that, I write the L exceptions. So whatever the exception that you am handling, I write it. And what statement I want to handle. So I will do that. So finally, if everything is good, I want to get the total number of votes. Else, I want to get the total number of votes. This is what I have. Okay. Now, if you see in this case, what will happen? Python 10 so and so. What will happen? If I give like 10, it is stopping there itself. You got an exception. So that's the reason your thought should be very clear. Where you are placing the exception, you will handle the things in that way. So if you are handling the entire exceptions at the overall block, so in the first option itself, you stopped, right? So observe carefully. So in the same method, I want to update further. Okay, the same method I want to update further. So in method 2, I'm taking the same thing option. In method 2, I am doing this try block where issue can be where the issue can be here, right? Within the while block, right? So you try to handle the try exceptions within it. You observe carefully what I am doing. The try block I am taking inside it. So else block I am taking inside it. And so except block and this else block I am taking inside it. So if everything is good, so you handle it. So in other cases you do. Okay. So if user is giving an invalid things, you don't want to increment also. So if everything is good only, you want to increment. Means you don't want to waste that choice. So you can write that else block here. Now user gives any number of valid inputs also. I will not take. I will ensure that total values are like 5 now. So if you see in this case entirely, so it will happen. And in while also we can have an else case, right? So this is not a wrong thing. So if I execute right now the program, if I say 10, it is saying an exception, fine. But now if I give like 23, so 23, 23, 23, 23, it took 5 options for me. So this time again, I do some mistakes, I do some mistakes. So I do any number of mistakes, but still I have the 5 options. Still I have the 5 options, right? So like that, if you write the try exceptions outside the for loop, it will be different. Inside the for loop, it will be different. But fine, this is one thought I want to bring to your notice. At the same time, you have these messages you are referring. You know, both the times, there are two types of problems. Invalid age is also there, or ineligible to vote also there. For both things, you are raising an exception only. But what if you create your own exception message? If you want to create your own exception, we need to know how to write the classes. In the exception class, there is something called as inheritance. The exception block we need to inherit and we need to write our own properties. At this stage, you don't know how to write the classes, but ignore. But once you know how to write the classes, we can make use of it. So what we can do is like, instead of, you writing this code, you can make use of this to make the things better. So what I will do is like, here, earlier I wrote an exception. Instead of writing an exception, I will write now that it is a invalid input exception. So it's an invalid age, like this custom messages. So will it handle by the exception? Yes, because all are under the part. Now if you see here, if I give like a 10, I got an exception. Hey, exception, you are ineligible to vote. It handled it. So if I give like something else, okay, it handled it. Invalid error. So if I give like, say like, to not eligible to vote. If I give like -8 invalid input, all were handled, right? So now if I give properly, it will work. I got the 5 options. Okay, so I think like this is still executing. Let me call. So this is how it works. Hope it's fine. What I'm trying to say, I am giving you the real world use cases, how I have solved the problems, and how you also can do the same thing. So, and when you are handling these things, so if you want to make it much more interesting, instead of saying that you are ineligible, you can give a better statement. So whenever you are writing to a end users, be careful. So try to make them as attractive as possible. Instead of saying that ineligible to vote, saying that you are short by these many years to, voting. So that will encourage them, right? Okay, after 2 hours, 2 years, I can come back. So after 1 year, I can come back and I can be voting. So like that, I can do all the things. So like this, different options, we can get it. Hope it's clear. So fine. So like this we can have. So this is one thing. Anyhow, like total eligible votes would be 5 because how many things you give, the same thing gonna happen. So fine. Like this it works. Next, after this, we have something called as exception groups. I think like certain options are there which are not working in Python 3.10. I want to skip it, so which won't work there. But one thing I want to bring to your notice is exception hooks. So there is one more thing called as exception hook. What is this exception hook means? There will be one exception whenever exception happens. If you want to write something, say like how this exception works means, this can be occurring when an exception is handled with an exception block. So, and when exception is so and so means, let me give example, clear the screen. If I do like 1/0, so that's the most common exception we know. If I do 11 so and so, it will throw an error. That's for sure. And if I write one message, say like, generally, next you will learn about what to write a function. You write a diff and you write your function name and you write something within it. So print like hello world. This is how you write a function. And if you write a function, also it makes no sense. But that function need to be registered. So there is something called as a import sys. Hope by now you will recognize sys is a very, very important module. For the sys module, there is something called a sys.exit hook. For that exception hook, we need to register this function. If you register this function, then it will execute. Sir, even if I register also, it is saying that error in this exception hook it is saying. So means something error happened. This is another error. What is this? Your function you have like empty, but this function should have 3 values. Hope you remember earlier when I have created that traceback, I told you this execution information will give you 3 values: the type, value, and the traceback. So similarly, when you write a hook also, it should have those 3 values. If you define those 3 values only, it will work. If I define right now, it's working. Now, did you understand what happened right now? So you wrote 1/0. 1/0 means it should break the code, but unfortunately, it's not breaking the code. Do you want to see the change again? I will comment it. You see now, I clear the screen, and if I run it again, you see the code was broken. And if I uncomment this registration, means it will register now. If I execute right now, did you see the code was not broken? Means this exception hook will be executed whenever it is happening. So what will happen if hello world will print? It should say that there is an error, something happened, right? So yes, instead of hello world, you should write whatever statements you have. The type, value, traceback, and also I gave the detailed information like at what line, what happened. All that information you can write in your function. As it is your exception hook, instead of writing like my function or some other function, so you write a clear way so that you only can better recognize. The naming should be good. So if I write like this, so now it's clear. Now you see here, whenever the code was broken, instead of actually doing it, it will tell that, okay, zero division error occurred, value, so and so. And also this execution information has all this information, right? So the traceback and all these things, line informations, that all we can capture and ask it, hey, can you help me? If you want, you can ask. So in the hierarchy, so it can go on. So I think execution information, so we call it as a execution information. Maybe I will change there instead of changing all of them. Execution information, fine. So similarly, exception traceback. So exception traceback, exception value. Okay. So it expects 3 values. If you pass 3 values, it will work. If I execute right now, more verbosely you can see exception, error message, traceback, and all this information. So if you don't want these things, you can just remove it. Unhandled error and all that information you can write. So this is how it's working. Line and others. Okay, sir. So you got an exception. That's why this message is executed. What if you have a 1 by 10? So then nothing will happen. Means only when the issue is there, you get the issue problem. If not, things will be good. If execute again, if there is an issue only, this exception hook will execute. Sir, what if there are multiple exceptions? Of course, even if you have multiple also, somehow the code is about to break. Okay, that is also fine. What if you have a exception, but that exception was handled it? So to understand that better, let me write a statement. So you have an exception 1 by 0. So that 1 by 0 was handled right now. So if someone handled the exception, will it still execute the exception hook? If execute right now, no. So when you handle the exception hook, means you are not breaking the code, right? So it will not execute. So, but if you don't handle the exception, then it will be do. So it's a best practice to write this also. So that sometimes, unfortunately, within the code, if you don't write a try exception block, it will break, right? So, so that's the reason for the entire project, it's better to have one. So that this block, exception hook block. So suddenly someone wrote something. They didn't write a try exception anywhere. Then how do you know? So whether it is, raise also is one kind of exception, right? So like that, anything can be an exception. So we need to handle. So like that, we should be aware. So, sir, what if I have like multiple things resisted? Say like, of course, let me comment this example. So you see here, I wrote one more command. So, and sorry, no, ignore it. Okay, ignore it. Sure. That's just a repetition. Fine. Fine. This is all about the exception hooks. And lastly, to say, there is a concept of warnings also, as we have discussed it till now. So similarly, there is something called as warnings. If you want to discuss more about the warnings also, there is a big module also for it called as warnings module. If you go to the each of the attributes, we can see that. And print of DAR of this. If you want to know the list of attributes, you go for DAR, right? If I ask like print, so 12 so and so, you got the list of attributes. And as you know, right, if you want to get the things which don't have underscores on either side, instead of printing directly, we can ask like this. So this is how you do, right? For loop on each of them and get the values. So these are the most common like warnings. How do you write a warning? If you are creating your own product and you want to write some warnings, so user should not do in a particular way, what are the things? For that we can write warnings dot warn of what are the things if you give. So it will warn like that. So whatever you are getting, see here, it is saying what it is exactly showing the line also. At line 13, it is saying user warning. This is not a good practice. So whatever the message you gave also, it is showing. Similarly, if you want to, add some filters to the warnings, so that also you can do. So I'm saying like ignore, do not, so like that. If I'm adding like a filters to display on a specific warnings, so I can do like that also. If I do right now, you can notice that. So it will add those filters. And now again you are seeing. So this warning will not be displayed. So do not show this message. Did you see? I gave two warnings. Warnings.warn of this one I gave. Good practice. You saw that output. Similarly, you saw that, warning.warn of this will not be displayed. But sir, why this do not show did not come? Did you see? Because here I wrote that filter warnings. Means, though there can be warnings, don't display them. So if you want to filter them, if I remove this filter, if I comment it, then if you execute, you see all three warnings are coming. As I told that, here filter I wrote, hey, don't filter the warnings which don't we have this kind of text. Do not is there, right? That's why it's not coming. So that is the concept of filters for these exceptions also. So it means you within your code you can write multiple warnings. At the main block level, you can write the filters if you want. Sometimes things should not come in. At the same time, even the warnings also we can handle. If something happened for a warning, also we can do anything if you need. So overall, also we can handle the warnings. So Python actually, if you go to this is a one big Bible, I would say, of Python. You can come here, which are the version you are working. For that version, you can come and do. So python.org is the original site. For that, you have the documentation. You go to the pydocs. There is something called as pydocs. Here you come. So which are the version? And if you want to know more about the warnings, if I say warnings, it will give the warnings related module. So I go here with the warnings related, what all things I can do. So sometimes you want to implement custom warnings like runtime, future warnings. Sometimes you have a product, so you want to deprecate. So you can say like deprecation warnings. All of them you can write for your own code. So I am telling all these things in a product building perspective, such that in future, if you want to create your own product also, so things would be easy. So with this, like the main concept of this was done. As we are in the follow, I told you when we are starting the exceptions that there are three types of exceptions. One is the syntax errors. Whenever there is a problem in the code structure, Python has its own way of doing. So, Java has something, Go language has something. If you're not following the structure itself, you get a syntax error. That's not sure. So if the syntax error comes, there is no point. So you need to handle it. Only then Python code will run. After running, so I told, right? No one will try to write a code which has bugs. So we try to have as much less bugs as possible. But there are certain situations which we cannot, handle, which are beyond a developer's control. Like password reset happens, or like, someone so suddenly leaves the organization. You cannot have a control on them, right? If they suddenly leaves, and if a email was triggered for them, so that person is not there, you will get an email bounce back error, right? So like that, many things can happen in runtime. So those are all exceptions you handle, right? So whenever an exception happens, you know the reason for that, you handle in that way. And the last thing is logical errors. Logical errors means here I wrote a statement that when you need to add two values, you need to add like this. Am I correct? I need to add two numbers. Am I adding correctly? No, right? Here I am doing a multiplication operation. I am supposed to do addition, but I am doing a multiplication operation. So it is your mistake. So will Python help you in this case? No, no matter what language you are, it doesn't help you. That's the reason nowadays AI is doing. You write a comment, and like this Chat GPT and Go Copilot and all of them are generating code. So just to help you. But the point is different. What I'm trying to say, if you logic itself, you write a mistake, no one can help you. As an individual, you need to solve that problem. To address that problem only, we have this concept of debugging. So which will shortly complete it. It's called as debugging. So in debugging, we need to work on a module called as pydb. And what is this concept of pydb? What we do here with this module, pydb. Pdb means like for the debugging we use it. If I say like import pdb, import pdb. So any module, if you want to know the list of attributes, you have like the dir. If I say pdb, you can notice it. Okay, Python. You see now, it has these many attributes, starting from say like some help. Did you see something like a postmortem? So something like pprint, re means, so over a period of time I told, right, it will have the basic modules also, and others also it has. And of course, next step, next after 2 chapters, I will explain you all these modules. But what are the basic things? Means like set trace. So this pdb.setTrace is the most important thing. And if you use help for like pdb.setTrace, you'll understand. Help, I told, right, we can use anywhere. Help don't need a print also. Trace, set trace is like a module attribute. So it is saying like this thing. There is no much help for you to understand, but you can do something, it's saying. Okay. So I came out of this show. It is like a help. What is this PDB doing? How to work with it? To understand much about it, let me go for a use case. This is one of the module. To understand the use case, let's do like this. Okay, let me take two values. So in runtime, and I want to multiply them. So if I want to multiply them, so I am taking the multiplication operation. So I am saying that, so result is equal to value 1 plus value 2. And finally, I am printing the value. So this is what I want to do. If I clear the screen, Python a so and so. It is asking 10, 20, I gave. The answer is 30. When I do multiplication, 10 into 20, I should get 200. But why I got 30? So there is some issue. I don't know where the problem is. Okay, here the problem just like 10 lines. In real time, code will not be that small. There will be 500 lines, 400 lines, or like there will be multiple files. So then how do you debug? You need to go to each of the line. So the best thing is like going with a print statement. I write like the print statement everywhere. So print is the most common way of debugging for anyone. So everyone will do like, so what is the value of value to, like that you do every time. And similarly, after your work is done, you write the, result also. So like that. But prints are not a good idea because we cannot print every time. Sometimes the code will go to a third parties like a REST API. It will trigger. So you cannot print 100 times. Sometimes the code will be very bulky enough for printing. It will be very big. It will generate a CSV file or text files or very big string. So then these prints are not that suitable. Then in that case, what we should go? Instead of reprinting all the things, we should go for something called as PDB. This PDB, especially pdb.setTrace. What is this actually doing? So basically, whenever we want to use, like any other module, we don't import like it traditionally. So whenever needed only, we need to import it. Of course, in production code, PDB should not be there. Debugging will not happen in production, right? So wherever you want to use, there we import and use it. So we need to import PDB. So what generally do is like people, so they do a comma separator pdb.setTrace. Why they do like this? Because it's easy to comment right in one line. If I write in 2 lines, okay, this pdb will be imported in the top and setTrace will be in the down somewhere. So again, it would be a hash. So that's the reason people will write in one line. Then it's easy. So whichever the line you got it out, you place it there. So do you think that the issue is here in the below above them? No. I thought the issue is somewhere below. That's the reason wherever you thought the issue could be, there you place the PDB and setTrace. So okay, let's so whenever you are using the PDB, we should better write in a single line. import pdb semicolon. You know the concept of semicolon. I told that if you want have multiple statements in the same line, if you want it like a statement separator, then we can make use of the semicolon. The semicolon operator works for that particular purpose. Now coming back to this, if I say Python execute this code, Python so and so, you see 10 I give, 20 I give, I expect 300, 200, but like what I'm getting. So if I go to this, I'm getting to a pdb interactive mode. It is simply like a Python shell. So how you do in an ordinary Python interactive shell, the same thing we can do much better way. So here this is what, and here in the process you can do like ordinary calculations. So generally if I have like 10 plus 2 20, what should be the value? 30. And I am to do the multiplication. So like 10 into 20, what should be the value? Like that also I can do. Or like I can check the existing values. I can check the existing values and I can do my operations here. Okay. So I want to do the multiplication. So why I got 30 now I understood. So it is doing addition. And what should be the actual value? You should have done value like this. Then it should have been the correct. So now I understood the problem is at here. Instead of addition, we should do the same thing with a multiplication. So I understood the problem. Instead of addition, I want to replace with multiplication and things will work. So, and you modified the code and you cannot expect immediately to happen. So as you modified the code right now, you need to stop it. To stop it, we need to write something called as queue. So why this queue, why this particular F or something means? So there is some concept called as a help, hitch or help if I give. I'll get the list of all the keywords. So why this kind of things came, sir? Because if you right now you have the privilege of having VS Code and editor and all these things. But just imagine on a Linux system, you don't have all these things on a Linux screen. You have only one black screen. Whatever you want to do, you do there. You write the code also there. You open a terminal, VI editor, everything there only in a Linux box. So there you don't have all these privileges. So in that case, this is more useful. So here for hitch or help if I give, it will say. And similarly, there is something called as L. If I give L, it will give the list of the command lines. And there is one more thing called as LL. LL give means the entire thing. So like a thing. And the difference is that L will just give a list of lines. And optionally for L, we can give how many lines of code you want. And everything will give around your current execution. The current execution where it is, the next step to execute is at line 11. Why? Because at line 8 you have the PDB, line 9 is an empty, line 10 is a so comment, it will not execute. So the next line to execute is line 11. So that's a cursor arrow is showed at line 11. Even if you go L or LL, the same thing happens. So LL is much better. So more like intuitive, I would say, pretty much. And like if I go further, now I understood the problem was solved, addressed. So if I want to come out of it, there is something called as a queue or quit. I can give quit also. I can give a queue also. If I give quit right now, it will quit it. So stopped it. And now I need to re-execute again. So when I want to re-execute again, so I will give 10, say 20. So it is coming again there. So you addressed the problem, but still you want to check again. So I am checking like what is the result. So will the result be executed yet? No, because that is the next statement to execute if you give an opportunity. So you are passed at line 8 and you next statement execute is line 11. So LL if I do, you can notice before even executing the statement, you cannot ask what is the result, right? So if you want one execution line to execute at a time, you give N. N means next. So if I do N, next step, it will execute. Now you see the cursor position will move from line 11 to line 12. So by the time it came to line 12, it will know what is the result also. I can ask the value. Then if I do the again next statement, it will go to the next statement. If I do LL again, did you see? So if I say like next statement, because that's the last statement, there is nothing else to do. So it will stopping the execution. So if you want one step at a time, you go with this kind of option. So that is one thing. And to understand more about this, I have a list of all the things to explain this kind of debugging. There are multiple debuggers like this. So the most famous are which I'm telling right now. So any program will have print statements. That's a very common thing. But print statements are not suitable for many things. So it would be large enough, difficult to debug, so and repetitive. To avoid that issues, we need to go for a better approaches. For better approaches, there are two ways: console-based debugging and IDE-based debugging. IDE-based means every IDE, like PyCharm is a very good option. If you give a try, you can try. PyCharm so is a very good option. For PDB, pydevd, this is a module which is inside it. You need not know what is pydevd also. So every thing has their own way of debugging. If you use it by default, it will have it. And similarly, there is console-based debugging. The first and foremost which I showed is PDB. Then I will tell what is this breakpoint. Then ipdb. And if you have some time, like you can just walk through and new kinds of PDB debugging things like pudb, like multiple things are there right now, not just one. So as PDB is the most common used, I gave the list of commands. I told L is for the displaying the lines of code. LL I told to display the lines. N is for the next line to execute. So C is for continue. Like that, breakpoints and all these things are there. So conditional breakpoints and all these things. So we just created one program. We understood how to address it. So now for the same problem, so I can modify further. Let me go for one more option. Breakpoint function. This time I want to use. See, basically, breakpoint is a function which was introduced recently. I think around 3.8 or somewhere it was introduced. So it, sorry, 3.6. So it is same like your pdb.settrace only. So, what they found is like most people are doing like this. Hey, they are doing import pdb and in pdb.settrace. So whenever the linters are running, they are making this pdb to go in the top and like pdb.settrace will be there. So to avoid these problems, too much repetitions, they created a built-in function called as a breakpoint. This breakpoint function was introduced in 3.6. Its only job is to do like this. Means wherever we have an issue, we can use it. So let me go for one more example. This time I have some numbers. For these numbers, I want to display all the even numbers. Even numbers I want to display. So how do I display all the even numbers? Let's see. So for each number in numbers. So if each number percentile 2, I want to print each number. Okay, this is what the logic I wrote. It's good to actually analyze. So, and also before even going for this Python be so and so, or else I need to navigate to this directory, copy path. Okay, Python be so and so. See now, I got all the values. Okay, so before even going for the breakpoint, anyhow breakpoint, the moment we place, we can understand. So there is one more thing called as post analysis. So that also I will tell afterwards. But as we are thinking of pydb, let me try the pdb.settrace. When generating the numbers, there is an issue, no issue. After that only issue is coming. So that's why wherever I found issue, I place it there. If I execute right now, so it is going there. If I do ll, it is saying what? In the entire code, execution is at line 18 right now. If I do a n, so again ll, execution is at line 19. So again ll, so execution, so okay, n I need to do, and ll again. So execution is again at the top. So means it can go inside or outside. Again, so every time I do a n ll, n ll, means it's a for loop, right? Those many times it will loop on like that. So, but like how many times you will go? So now it's a big difficult. Instead of you writing this here, you better write this here or like somewhere else. So if there are multiple places where you want to write, you cannot write every time the pdb.settrace multiple times. You write somewhere, everywhere if you want to pass, that's where you write is something called as breakpoint. So you found like every time this code is looping, so not every time it is going inside it. Only when it is going to deep inside, you want to pass. So at line 20, you want to have a breakpoint. So we set like a breakpoint B20 if I do. If I do LL, did you notice right now? The execution right now is at this one. Breakpoint is also here. So unfortunately, so both are like coincident. And I found that what is the each number? Each number. You see the number is 1. Is 1 an even? No. Okay. If I do a n, generally n means what? One line at a time it will execute. So again, if it need to come to inside, I need to execute like again a n, it will go inside line 19. Again a n, l again. So it is not going inside. Again, it's continuing the next loop. So again a n, again you see here line 19, again a n. Now it is come inside. So from one loop, if you want to iterate, this much time it is taking, right? But simply, so if you want to go directly to that place every time, you need not type n every time. N means next is for like next statement, next statement, next statement, like that. Rather, if I say C or continue, like we have also continue, right? So continue is one of the Python statement. Like that, there is a C or a continue. If the C is done, it will execute till the next breakpoint, execute till the next breakpoint. See, every time it is going, it will go till the next breakpoint. Every time you do C, it will go cursor to the next breakpoint. You see? So every time you do a C, cursor will go to the next breakpoint. If there is no breakpoint further, it will complete the entire code. So like that it will come. So each time when it is coming, I am printing. You see now it is 9. It is again no. So now I understood the issue. So only when this condition is valid, it is coming inside. Now I want to check what is this condition. I can execute any statements here. So it is 1, which is not equal to 0. Generally, when you write any condition, so Python will think that the end result should not be equal to 0. That's what, right? But what you are expecting, if something should be divisible by 2, means the result equal to 0, right? That's what you are expecting. So in fact, that is false. If you make that change, then it will work. So instead of like this, of course, this is the most common problem everyone does. So if I do right now, now this problem will be solved. Now I understood the problem, I solved it. So I can now do the same thing. I can, continue. So continue how many times I do also, it will execute because still a lot of loops are there. Now it need to complete it. So I want to either quit or complete the remaining lines. If I just want to quit it, I can just do a quit. But if I want to remove a breakpoint, I need to go here. If I need to remove the breakpoints, so here is what I have. So if you want to remove a breakpoint, this is how we need to do. So to understand more about this concept of breakpoints, so before even clearing it, let me first create the breakpoints. I told you how to create a breakpoint. So you created one breakpoint, right? So let me create one more breakpoint. Say breakpoint, break, just break. Uh, you give the line number. If I say line number 18, you see now at line 18 you got a breakpoint. And similarly, so if I say like a break 19, at line 19 you get a breakpoint. And similarly, if I do like a uh, break 13, so can I do before the importing pdv and set trace? Yes, of course, you can do anywhere. So it will do it. What if I create a breakpoint on an empty line? Will it create? So break, if I do on line 16, so blank or comment line, I cannot do it. So if I do a break on like line 17, blank or comment line, I cannot do. So finally, you got these many breakpoints, right? So if you want to clear the breakpoints, so but this is a tricky. So and let me quit right now. Means I completed the close the program. Q stopped, did everything. I created a lot of breakpoints. I stopped the program. So and I am rerunning the code. Rerunning the code. The code again executed all the way. Now if you see the LL, did you see were there any breakpoints anymore? No. Again it is fresh. If you want to create any again a breakpoints, you can create it. Again you can do. So this is how the entire process works. And here there were no breakpoints. If I do like a n, it will go to the next line. But if I say continue C, it will execute the entire code. And in the same fashion, like pdb.setTrace, I can replace it with a breakpoint. Instead of this, I can use a breakpoint, and the code works exactly the same way. If I execute again, the same thing. So if I say continue, it will execute in the same way. So clear, if I execute again, I can do a LL, same statements, everything. So it's like a old bottle in an old wine in a new bottle, what you say. So breakpoint, that's how it works. And finally, one more thing I want to say is that you understood the issue and you want to address it. Say you want to say continue. You got all the values which are like even, right? You understood that you got a even values. And you want to display all the values from 0 through 100. But did you see the values are not till 100? Even 100 is also even number, right? So the last values, if you want to check, so we can do a post analysis. That's what I thought of telling. There is something called as post analysis also. If you want to do post analysis on any script, means after execution, if you want to check, after execution, how I can check, sir? The code will execute, everything will be done. Means till now, how you are executing any Python code? Python space file name, right? So in the same fashion, before even file name, there is one more option called as -i. If I do Python -i and the script name, then it will execute like this. Of course, let me comment this one, these breakpoints, because we addressed the issue, we addressed it. So let me quit it. Exit. Okay, leave it. Yeah, what I'm trying to say, Python -i and the program script name. If I execute, so earlier also it executed. Now also it executed. But the difference is that after executing the entire code, still the cursor is there. Means you can access the variables. You can check what is the numbers. What is the variables within this code, everything you can check. What is the last value of each number which was processed, which is a 99. Now I understood last value. So in the numbers also, I can check, hey, what is the -1? The last value is 99 only. Why numbers of last value is 99? Because range will create values from the given value till the last value, but doesn't include the last value. If you want extra, you need to do a plus one, right? So if you want 100, you need to do 101. Only then you get it. So now I understood with post analysis this issue also. So how you need to exit. So now you understood the problem. You run the program directly. Python space b so and so. Now execute. You got all the even numbers only, including 100. Is it clear? So this is how you do a post analysis also. And one more issue which I want to bring to your notice is that these breakpoints, I didn't tell you one kind of mess here. With PDB, let me tell you this breakpoints now. Let me place the breakpoint again. Clear screen, Python, b so and so. If I do a CC, LL, LL, you got the entire thing. You got the code, and you can write a breakpoint. Generally, if I want to write a breakpoint, I can write, say, break. You just give me the line number. Say line 21, I want to create a breakpoint. So similarly, break 20 I want to do, and break 13 I want to do, and break 19 I want to do. So this is the order in which I have given. Okay, so just remember this order. Why I'm telling this order, you will understand afterwards. So in this way I have given this order, right? So first I have given like break 21, next break 20, then like break 13, then like I gave like a break to 19. So like this I have given. So these breakpoints. So totally these breakpoints were given 1, 2, 3, 4. If I do LL, you can notice these breakpoints are there. So after these breakpoints, what we can see? Okay, this is good. So when our code execution happens, when you do C continue, it will continue till the next breakpoint and it will pass there. So that is we understood. And similarly, if you want to clear the breakpoints also, you should clear, right? For clearing the breakpoints, the commands are like this. And before even clearing, there is one more thing like enabling and disabling also. If you want to enable, disable, or clear, so this is the biggest headache. The reason is simple. Okay, you did a breakpoint at line 19. Similarly, if you want to disable the breakpoint or enable the breakpoint, you do at line 19. What it says? Breakpoint number 19 is out of range. So how it actually happens, I will tell you. Once you create a breakpoints, for every breakpoint, it will give a number. So the breakpoint at line 21, so is the breakpoint. So if I say disable, line 0 right now, it will say like already deleted. Sorry, disable. If I want to disable the line 19, so in the order how much it was done, first, second, third, fourth, I should say disable 4. Now it will do that. It is saying what? Disabled breakpoint 4. It would be crazy for you so to think of it, but this is how it works. So you can see the difference, but it will not tell like enabled or disabled also. You cannot visualize that. So a breakpoint is there. Disabled means like, so it will not have its effect. But can you identify whether it is disabled or not there? No. So similarly, if you want to disable, so this is the first one, right? This is the ID is like 1. This is like ID is like 2. This is the ID. It has an ID of like 3, and it has an ID of 4. So this ID we need to refer with this ID right now. So this is the ID for each of them. With this ID only we need to refer. If you want to disable or enable or clear or so and so. So if I say enable the 4, it will enable right now. So disable 3, it will say that disable 3. At line 13, I am disabling, I am saying. Means when you are creating a breakpoint, it's easy. By line by you can do. But when you want to enable, disable, or if you want to clear, so you need to know this order. So where you cannot write this order somewhere, right? Again, it's again extra burden. So if I say clear 3, it will clear the third breakpoint. So if I clear the third breakpoint was cleared right now. Now I have 3 breakpoints. And if I want to clear the fourth breakpoint right now, I say like clear 4. So the fourth breakpoint I need to remove. So, and if I do like after clearing the 4, again if I do a clear, it is saying already it was deleted. You see now, like this. So this is the biggest problem with this PDB. Or breakpoint also is like a same thing, right? There is nothing new. So how to address this problem? So to address this problem, we have something called as ipdb. So this concept of ipdb, what it does? The same problem I will try to implement with it. ipdb. ipdb will not come by default. If you want, we need to install it. So to install this module, you need to do like this. This is a command for installing it. So pip install -u. -u means if it is already installed, upgrade it. So if not, install it. So for the current user. So, and if you have an admin access, you need not write the -- user. Okay, it has done it. So it has installed it. It is saying that requirement already installed. You need not worry. I have it. Fine. Now let's take the same example and I want to work. So if the same example is there, so instead of that, I can do. So how we do like pdb.setTrace. Similarly, there is ipdb dot so isetTrace. Sorry, ipdb.setTrace we have. So either you place there, or if you feel like if it is below down, so wherever you feel like, you write there. So once I write, I can work on it. Say Python C so and so. If I execute right now, did you see? This is slightly different. And here it is giving that icons and others. The moment it is coming to interactive mode, or immediately it is showing the error lines, right? And the colors also it is showing. If I do H, same like help, the same help of library it also has, but in a much better way. If I do L, it will give the list of lines. See how it is showing, the line number also it is showing. So, and if I do LL, it is giving much clearly. So enter code, it is giving like this for you, and it's showing the arrows. And similarly, if you want to do the breakpoints, if I do a break, I give like some random values, say like, break 20, break 90, break 21. I gave like this order, 3 values. Now if I do LL, did you see now? Instead of saying like, BBB, it is showing like, the numbers. Now it is clear for anyone to understand, right? So which is the number? I need not write again separately. Okay, which one I wrote first, which breakpoint I placed next. I need not worry. So that is the advantage. Clearing also the same thing, disabling, say if I say disable, I need not worry right now. I can directly say like disable 2. Then it will disable that breakpoint. If I say here, did you see the color also slightly different? When it is disabled, it is a light color. It is not a bold color. So, and if it is a enabled again, say enable 2 if I do LL again, did you see it became a bold color? So it is much more clear right now. Earlier it was very much confusing, right? PDB. So it don't have that kind of, so these things. Whereas it can do much things betterly. And not only this, PDB, so this is ipdb is created on type of IPython. That's the reason it has all the IPython functionalities. IPython means like, if I have like this kind of numbers. Numbers is an object which we created. With numbers, what we can do, if I do a dot, if if I do a tab. So with a tab means like what all attributes it has, everything you can see there itself. So as it is like a range object has these things. So what are it has, you got it. You can just execute and get it. Similarly, let's say you created some number one. Number one is equal to some 100 or something. So it's an integer. With integers, what all attributes we can do? You do a dot and you do a tab. With integers, what all things we can do? Everything you can do here. So, and similarly, if you have a string, some other case we have a string. And if I say like string dot, you do a tab. With strings, what all things we can do? Capitalize, lower, all these things you can do, right? You can give, so you can get this kind of automatic help. So due to this, like more people prefer IPDB a lot. So because of all these things. And also this ipdb, we can make it default also if you have this environment variable. So this is another important thing. In the environment variables, if you export like this, so if you don't write anything also, if you use breakpoint, that will go defaultly for this one. So right now when you're doing a breakpoint, you get a pdb only, because so that is the default thing. But if you set this environment variable, that will happen. To exit it again, to set the environment variable, in Windows we have like environment variable. There you have, we can do all the things. But in Linux, so we can do the same option, export this one. You can try. If you export that, so you can see the environment variables. So env. If you type the word env in Linux, you can get all the environment variables. So you set something, you can check that. So it starts with P. So you can check that environment variable. Sometimes if you don't have the access to the system, you cannot do it. But here it was set right now. Now instead of this pdb.setTrace, I can use a breakpoint. If I do now, again if I run the code, if I clear the screen, Python C ipdb. Now did you see what happened? Even if I commented the ipdb, first of all you need to install it. So that's one thing. Okay, if you don't install, it will not work. It will throw an error. First you need to install, then you set this environment variable. Then the moment you did a breakpoint, automatically this will execute. Hope it's clear. So this is how things will work. And you can take some assignment of clearing the breakpoints in the ipdb. So which I didn't tell right now, right? So you can give a try clearing them. After clearing them, whether they are having their impact or not, that you see. So this is what I want you to go through. And the last thing, like every other, here also there is a hook. Like a exception hooks, there is something called as a breakpoint hooks also. So break, or we can call as a debug hook. What is this concept of debug hook? So how you do? Debug means like, breakpoint only. Whenever there's a breakpoint, it will happen. So when someone has done a breakpoint, this function will execute. So you define some function. So, and you register it. Unlike the exception break hooks, it don't expect anything from you. Means no input arguments are needed. Now, generally, if you write this code, it will not execute or it will not throw anything for us. Let me clear the screen. Python d so and so. Think it's not executing. Copy path. Okay, it's not a .py file. Yeah. Yes. Python. Yes. It's I created one function, simple hello world, and it did so I registered to this breakpoint. Nothing happened. So okay, if I have some code, say like some logic to execute, same example. numbers is equal to range of 0 through 100, and I am executing. Okay, numbers. I have some logic to execute, it will work. But did I, though I registered breakpoint, it will not be called because I am not using the things. Okay, if I use like a import pdb and set trace, if I do import pdb and set trace, so this is one way, right? So will the webhook call? No. So this function breakpoint got activated is not coming, right? Means like this function is not called. Your ordinary pdb things are coming. If I say like continue, this program execution happens. Similarly, I go with like ipdb. So instead of a pdb, so I try with a ipdb. In ipdb also execute. So ipdb is executing. But did you see this breakpoint webhook is executed? No. So nothing. So if I do continue, things will execute. Then when it will be executed means only it works only with the breakpoint function. Only when you use the breakpoint function it will work. So if I execute right now, did you see what happened? The breakpoint function executed. But when you write a breakpoint, so basically you want the code to be paused there, right? Things should not go further. So within that, like if you want have a logic or something, you can write. So breakpoint got activated, and within that you can write your code. So that's the best way because you don't want the code to jump. So if you execute right now, the code will say like breakpoint got activated and it will pass there. So this is the best way of doing, right? Instead of you writing the pdb somewhere and so, or like if you want some custom statements to be executed before. Sometimes when I execute on some of the pipelines, I want to know the previous values or something. So all those pre-checks I will place calculate there in these hooks. So instead of writing a hello, I can say like, so my breakpoint hook, my breakpoint hook function. So the more verbose you write, the more easy for you to remember. If you write like simple hello, you yourself will forget why you have written that. So, okay, this is the best practice. Okay. So now we understood the concept of these breakpoints also, breakpoint hooks also. So the last thing to go through is apart from these breakpoints. So the next thing is like there were another modules like the pudb, Python pudb. This is another module. So if you want to know, say console-based visual debugger. So this is also another module which were like having 2.7 k stars. So they want to show you like visualization. So like this, they want to visualize and show you where you are debugging and others. So this is what their intention. So similarly, there is one more thing called as pdb pp. So pdb db is like, it is a fork of like pdb plus plus. So pdb pp. So there were like a lot of people who are supporting this also. If you go to their github, so you can see. So only 1 star. I think like someone has forked. Yeah, this is a module. So if you go to the a drop-in replace for pdb, I think it's still in the 0.10, means like very small version. So if any module, if you want to go to their homepage, this is how you can go. So it will navigate. Yeah, this is the original thing, 1.1k. So pudb is having like, so 2.7k. This is much better. And if you want to try any new module also, it's not that difficult. So just go through the documentation, what they're saying, so you can just follow it. So generally these modules will be available over the PyPy. So all the modules that we have will be available in the PyPy actually. So this is the pypy.org is the original site where all the packages will be placed. So if you want to work on any package, you can check for this thing in here. If I select pudb, if you want to work on pudb, you can just go here and ask. Okay, it will ask. Okay, in pudb, this is the first thing. So you can just go there and you can see every time, don't just go for any module. So if you are working on a module, you check whether it is like a valid version or not, and go to their home page and see the contributors. There should be good number of contributors, and how many stars are there. So how many recent activities. If you go to the GitHubs, you can find them. So how many code execution happening. So recently means like 2 days back, means it is a actively going development. So like that, you need to see all of them. So these days, some people are going for creating malicious modules, which will mimic the common modules. You may think that as legitimate, and you download, and so some people are like stealing your passwords, environment variables, and all the things. So be careful about that. So if you want to work on this module also, the same thing. So pudb, so the same command, what they have given a documentation how to start working on it. So starting the breakpoint. So if it's saying like from pudb import set trace, or pudb.settrace import set trace. So same like how you do. It is saying like how we have done a Python breakpoint setup. The environment variable they are asking to change. The moment you change it, every time you do a breakpoint, so it will do automatically. It's saying, okay, let's try the same example with this one. So to try this, very simple. First, we need to install this module. So pudb. So pudb, pip install pudb, the same command I do. So pip install. So hyphen u, this is a best practice. Hyphen user. This hyphen user is needed when you're not going for a virtual environments. So till I didn't tell you the concept of virtual environment, down the line I will tell that. So I have installed this module. Now let's try with that. So using pudb .py. So let's take the previous example, what we are working. I think this example, with that itself, let's try. Okay. So in this example, instead of a pdb.settrace, I want to do like, import pudb, comma, pudb.settrace. Everyone, if they create a module also, they do the same. Clear. Python is so and so. If I execute, did you see how the user interface is coming? So it is coming with a huge thing. If I say like, okay, it is giving me the options. I think I can navigate. So top and bottom, show line numbers. If I mention, it is showing the line numbers. So hide command lines if I want to hide or something. So internal, classic, IPython. So all these things are like different options I am asking to check. If I selected them, I can say okay, fine. So what are the code is there? Now it is like navigating. You can navigate here itself within the command line. So whatever you have. So it's like intuitive. So generally we go for the next steps. If you want to go n, right? So let me try. So n. If I wanna go here, I think like I need to have a breakpoints and all these things here itself. So whenever, okay, they're giving the steps like n for next and so and so. If I give next, it's not working. So in the command line, we can write like each value, what are the values, and we can make the computations and work on it. And if you want to switch from this command line, we can just walk through the, if you type like n, you go to the next line. So yes, step into B for break and all this commands like this. So like this, we can work on any new module, even if you don't know also.